But okay, before anybody interprets the canvas as theatrical concealment, it is theatrical concealment. But the thing beneath it is only dangerous to dignity.
That is how every serious injury begins. A man in glasses says the danger is largely reputational, and then somebody discovers a spring inside his thigh.
You could stand farther away.
I am standing farther away. Hammond is between me and it.
Yes, I noticed I'd been positioned as sacrificial furniture.
We agreed nobody becomes equipped.
Good, I'm invoking the clause early.
But the canvas is because I want fresh eyes. Underneath is a mechanism that works reliably and communicates its function terribly. I brought it exactly as found. Scratches, bad paint, one corner repaired with the wrong rivet. We alter one cue temporarily if possible and see whether prediction improves. No refinishing, no sanding it into an inspirational object.
And how are 5 people who already know the assignment meant to supply fresh eyes?
Sequential concealment. Whoever presents an object records its actual behavior privately. The other 4 predict before it's operated. Then we change one cue and repeat with the remaining objects, not the same observers in the same state.
That isn't fresh eyes. That is increasingly educated eyes.
Yes. So we track that contamination instead of pretending it isn't there.
But I love that sentence.
You're not allowed to put it on the wall.
But I wasn't going to put it on the wall.
You looked at the wall.
But I was appreciating its availability.
Can we remove the shroud before Savage begins building a museum about not building a museum?
But absolutely, behold.
It's a stapler.
It isn't.
It's plainly a stapler made for fastening together rhinoceroses.
Foot-operated sheet metal notcher, maybe.
But hand-operated, but yes, it cuts a triangular notch from thin sheet. Here is the bad communication. The long handle travels downward like a press, the top jaw appears to descend, and every first-time user puts the intended cut beneath the center of the upper block. The actual cutting edge is recessed here, nearly 2 inches behind what looks like the point of action.
So you carefully align your metal with the bit that looks hungry, pull the enormous handle, and discover you've cut somewhere else.
But exactly, it obeys perfectly while making you feel personally betrayed.
That isn't merely a cue problem. The tool conceals its operating geometry.
But we're allowed one visible cue, no transparent guard, no redesign. What predicts the true cut location?
A large arrow saying it cuts here.
That would work.
Thank you.
It would also be ugly, linguistically dependent, and unavailable to anyone who approaches from the other side.
There it is. The small hatch opens and Captain Pedantry climbs onto the deck.
What about paint? One narrow red line directly above the cutting plane.
But I have removable drafting tape. The machine's grime stays. We add a line without pretending the line has always been there.
Before modification, predictions. I'll draw the silhouette and have everyone mark where a strip placed against the fence will be cut.
You've made an examination.
4 marks take less time than complaining about 4 marks.
Not if the complaint is properly engineered.
Mine is here under the big obvious block, which I now know is wrong, but that is what it promises.
Slightly behind the block. The hinge geometry suggests the cutting member must sweep through an arc.
Centre. The machine looks Victorian and therefore intends to remove the finger placed most confidently beneath it.
Mine is at the rear edge, but I recognize the tool family. That prediction is disqualified for prior knowledge.
But now the tape, not on the blade, across the body, continuing down the fixed jaw, a sight line.
Narrower.
But I haven't applied it yet.
The piece in your hand is too wide.
But it's 6 millimeters.
It will read as a region rather than a plane.
He's right. Cut it in half longitudinally.
But this is why I invited people capable of turning tape into a constitutional question.
That tiny line changes the whole thing. My eye follows it through the gap.
It now resembles a machine with a laser sight, except the laser was purchased from a stationer.
But test piece. Nobody's hands near the jaws. Strip in, line aligned, handle down.
Oh, that's satisfying.
The triangular offcut is satisfying. The handle is needlessly long.
But the length is appropriate to 16-gauge steel.
We are cutting card.
But today...
Result. 3 naive predictions wrong, 1 informed prediction right. After the cue, everyone can indicate the cutting plane. We haven't shown it to truly fresh eyes. So the strongest honest claim is that the line makes the geometry legible to us after explanation.
Excellent. Science has established that when told how something works, we know how it works.
Science has established the limit of this room.
But, and that matters, I have a tendency to experience a good modification and sprint directly into universal truth.
I know.
But you do.
The useful part is that you stop before the sprint.
But I heard your shoes behind me.
Must we all arrive with metaphors? Or may I simply put my object on the table?
Please do. It's a charming little brass tap.
It is not a tap. That is precisely the problem.
It has a pipe, a body and a handle. If it isn't a tap, it has embarked on a deliberate campaign of misinformation.
It is a drain cock from an old compressed air receiver. Quarter turn. Open when the handle is parallel to the outlet, closed when perpendicular. Except somebody replaced the original lever with this round wooden knob, which rotates continuously because the retaining screw is loose. The valve itself reaches its stop after 90 degrees. The knob continues, giving the impression that it is still closing.
That is evil, quiet, plausible evil.
Does it leak?
No, it works, but users over-tighten the knob, conclude the valve is stripped, then fetch pliers and actually damage it.
But, oh, that's beautiful. The interface has a false second act.
It is not beautiful. It is why I spent 20 minutes listening for a leak that didn't exist.
A man voluntarily listens to an empty tank for 20 minutes and blames the knob.
A different man attacks brasswork with pliers because the knob has lied to him.
What single cue do you want to change?
Movement. A small removable stop collar beneath the knob so the visible control cannot rotate beyond the valve's actual travel.
That changes more than a cue. It constrains operation.
Movement was explicitly listed.
Yes, but there's a distinction between communicating the mechanism and preventing the misleading action.
But I think prevention can communicate. A detent says the state has changed. A guard says this region is not for hands. Physical syntax is still syntax.
Agreed, but then our question shifts. Fresh eyes may predict it better because we have made the wrong prediction mechanically impossible.
That sounds like winning.
It might be. I only want the result named correctly.
Then name it. The stop prevents users from inferring additional valve travel from meaningless knob travel.
Could a click do it with less interference? One click at open, one at closed.
A click can be missed in a noisy workshop.
Make it louder.
Then everyone believes a mousetrap has gone off inside the compressor.
But let's prototype both without altering the object. Collar from split nylon tubing, click from a spring steel tab touching 2 shallow notches on a sleeve, not the original shaft.
1 cue per condition. We can compare, though not independently, with only ourselves.
Grant you've brought the atmosphere of a standards laboratory to a table containing a wooden knob and 1 biscuit.
There were 6 biscuits.
That is a separate mechanism whose behavior we all predicted accurately.
But collar first. James operate it without looking underneath.
Definite stop. Open. Definite stop. It is improved.
It looks exactly as old as before.
That is also an improvement.
But now click sleeve.
That little tick is nice.
But after the click, the knob still turns. I'd infer the click marks a midpoint or interlock.
So would I. The click adds information without resolving the contradiction.
But the collar wins for this room. And we preserve the loose screw because tightening it would erase the actual problem we're studying.
Temporarily preserve it. History is not an obligation to continue having a defective drain valve.
That's important, isn't it? Not polishing away history doesn't mean venerating every fault.
Precisely. Patina is evidence. Leakage is leakage.
I have spent years explaining that distinction about cars, usually while standing beside smoke.
No, you've spent years calling smoke character.
And fire and ownership experience.
Both of you have confused mechanical sympathy with cowardice.
Your object next.
Gladly, this is a perfectly ordinary toggle switch.
It is under a red aircraft-style safety cover.
Exactly. It came from a potato conveyor arrangement which already possessed a small and bureaucratically adequate emergency stop. I wanted a stop control with presence. The cover lifts, the toggle moves, machinery ceases. Unfortunately, everyone encountering it believed it was lifting the cover arms something catastrophic rather than exposing a stop switch.
Because every film ever made says a red cover means missiles.
But also because the guarded action is normally the dangerous or irreversible one. Your guard assigns moral weight backward.
It protects the stop switch from accidental operation.
What happens when you close the cover?
The toggle returns to run.
Then it isn't merely a protective cover, it's a link control.
And a bad one. In an emergency, someone may slap the cover shut after stopping the conveyor and restart it.
Only if they are an idiot.
Fresh eyes are allowed to be frightened, hurried, short, left-handed, wearing gloves and not already briefed by you.
Short appears to have been added for personal reasons.
It was added because controls are mounted by people who think elbows begin at 5 feet.
But nobody is equipment, and nobody is the hypothetical idiot. That phrase hides the design decision inside blame.
Fine. A person of insufficiently intimate acquaintance with my magnificent lever might close the cover
and restart the machine. The wrong impression is not only that the switch launches something, it also suggests closing the guard restores safety when it restores motion.
Yes. Annoyingly, that is true.
Your one cue should be movement. Make the cover unable to reset the toggle.
That ruins the satisfying clack.
You brought the mechanism to help strangers predict it, not to preserve your favorite noise.
The noise is half the mechanism.
But maybe it can retain the clack and remove the reset. Decouple the cam, cover opens, toggle accessible, toggle goes to stop, cover can close over it without changing state. Restart requires opening the cover and deliberately moving the toggle.
That creates a visible state problem. Closed cover hides whether the switch is stopped or running.
Then the cover itself needs 2 resting positions, which exceeds 1 cue and creates needless complication.
What if the cover is the stop? Slap it down to stop, lift, and separately reset to run.
That is what it should have been.
But converting it would alter the mechanism, not 1 cue.
But we can test a label first. Not start and stop beside the toggle. Put stop on the outside of the red cover with a hand symbol pressing downward. That recruits the instinct to slap red things in emergencies.
Except pressing the existing cover downward starts it.
But,
Right.
which means the label would correctly expose that the mechanism cannot support the intended story.
That's a useful failure. Sometimes no cue can repair the mapping.
So my object is disqualified for being too magnificently wrong.
Or not disqualified, diagnosed. A visible cue can clarify a hidden action. It can't safely redeem an inverted action under emergency conditions.
I dislike how convincing that is.
You may keep the scratches.
And the clack, perhaps in a desk toy not connected to potatoes.
A magnificently unnecessary stop lever that stops nothing.
But that is sculpture.
No, because people might buy sculpture. This would remain genuinely useless.
Mine is less dramatic.
A small black box with 2 wheels and a switch. That is exactly how dramatic things disguise themselves.
It's a cable tensioner from a camera carriage prototype. Turn the knob clockwise and the carriage moves left. Turn counterclockwise and it moves right.
Viewed from which side?
Exactly. The knob is mounted perpendicular to the carriage travel. People map clockwise to right because they imagine the top of the knob moving right, but the crossed cable makes the carriage move left.
But does the crossed cable need to remain?
For this geometry, yes. It keeps tension balanced and clears the center line. The wrong impression is stable even after explanation. I still turn it wrong occasionally.
Paint arrows on it.
That's my proposed cue, but not arrows labeled left and right. A miniature carriage-shaped indicator on the knob face. geared so it translates laterally as the knob turns.
You've brought an interface problem and proposed a second mechanism.
Yes.
But it's delightful.
It is disproportionate.
Possibly. A static arrow tells you a rule you must remember. Movement shows you the consequence while your hand is acting.
Could the knob simply become a little steering wheel? Turn the top left, carriage goes left.
But the top currently moves right when the carriage moves left.
Cross your hands.
At last, proper engineering.
I mean, rotate the control 90 degrees, but apparently we've chosen cruelty again.
Rotating it conflicts with the housing. We could use a crank whose handle translates in the same direction as the carriage during the power half of its rotation, but reverses during the other half. Worse.
But what about sound? 2 quiet pitches, descending when the carriage travels left, ascending when it travels right.
Then a silent camera carriage sings whenever adjusted.
But not sings. 2 tactile clicks, different timbres.
That encodes direction arbitrarily. It helps only after learning.
All controls require learning, even doors. Half the doors in civilization say pull because architecture surrendered.
A door marked pull is admitting its handle gave the wrong instruction.
Sometimes the label is the scar left by the argument between the object and the body.
But that's going on the wall.
No.
But I didn't look at the wall that time.
You looked inwardly at a wall.
His entire interior is pegboard.
Let's try the simplest cue before building my indicator. A removable arrow on the knob skirt. Carriage direction, not rotation direction. Arrowheads left and right with a dot on the rotating knob. When the dot travels toward the left arrow across the top arc, the carriage actually travels right, so that fails. Put the reference at the bottom arc, then dot movement matches carriage movement.
That is clever, but depends on the user noticing the lower half of a circular control.
Put the grip only on the lower half, a semicircular handle.
But that changes the handle cue, keeps the mechanism, and maps hand travel to carriage travel. Grant, do you have foam?
I have a split collar and a small aluminum bar. Temporary handle attaches at the bottom radius. Push left, carriage left. Push right, carriage right.
So the answer is to make the wheel less wheel-shaped.
Yes. The full circle invites rotational reasoning. The lower handle invites translational reasoning.
And its history remains visible because the original knob is still there, slightly battered, and now wearing an obvious prosthesis.
But try it without rehearsing.
Push the handle left, carriage left. That feels inevitable.
Left, yes, irritatingly obvious.
The cue works because it changes the unit of action from rotation to displacement.
That's the claim. Not that it's universally intuitive, that it aligns the visible hand motion with the output motion for these observers.
And you didn't have to build the tiny carriage indicator.
I still want it.
But, of course you do.
Wanting to build it and claiming it's necessary are different things.
But that distinction may be the whole workshop.
Mine is a pump.
That is a perfume atomizer.
It's a small hand pump for watering a stubborn plant. The plant isn't here because it did not choose the room and cannot meaningfully consent to being a demonstration target.
The plant is the first sensible absentee.
The pump draws from this jar. You press the rubber bulb and water comes out of the brass tube, except not immediately. The first press charges a little air chamber. The second produces a delayed pulse after your hand has started to release. Everyone points it, presses once, sees nothing, peers into the nozzle, and presses again.
But, oh no.
Yes, nobody has been injured. Several shirts have been educated.
Why the delay?
A soft check valve and too much compliant tubing. It's useful around delicate soil because the pulse is gentle, but the bulb movement promises immediate output.
Make it honk before firing.
That would encourage people to point it at one another.
People already point everything that honks at one another.
But sound might genuinely solve it if it communicates charging. A soft rising wheeze while pressure builds, then a click before discharge.
The click must precede output enough to redirect attention, or it's merely accompaniment.
I'd rather alter movement. Put a small transparent flag on the air chamber diaphragm. First squeeze raises the flag. When the flag drops, water pulses. You see stored energy and impending action.
That reveals the mechanism rather than issuing an instruction.
Exactly. I don't want a label saying wait because waiting isn't quite right. I want the pump to show that my press went somewhere.
But that's gorgeous. The missing cue is acknowledgement.
Yes. Users repeat the input because the system provides no evidence it received the first one.
Like pressing a lift button twice.
Or 14 times in your case.
The lift may have become distracted.
There's something human in that, though. No acknowledgement, so we increase force, volume, or repetition. We assume the world didn't hear us.
Or we assume we failed to act correctly.
But, and sometimes the mechanism is simply between states.
So we should be careful. A pump is not a person, and people are not pumps awaiting improved indicator flags.
Yes, I don't mean we should instrument people so others can demand visible proof of internal processing.
That would recruit them as equipment. The person would be required to provide feedback on schedule so the other person can remain comfortable.
But we can choose to acknowledge reception without promising outcome. I heard you is not I agree, and it's not I can answer now.
This has become a very emotional watering can.
Only because you brought a missile switch for potatoes.
It was a stop lever.
It gave the wrong impression about what it would do.
Yes, well, apparently that applies to rooms too.
But I'm glad it drifted, but let's make the flag.
Thin orange film, hinged here, no drilling. A loop around the diaphragm collar. It rises about 12 millimeters on the first squeeze.
Orange suggests warning.
Good. There will shortly be water.
Blue suggests water.
But blue might imply it indicates water level rather than stored pressure.
Use the existing faded yellow scrap. It's visibly provisional and doesn't pretend to be an original gauge.
Yes. Leave the crease in it.
Attached. Press once.
The flag rises.
It begins to fall there. Pulse.
I didn't lean toward the nozzle.
A landmark result for British motoring.
But the flag does more than warn. It makes the delay feel causal. Before, the delay felt like absence.
And because the mechanism acknowledges the first input, nobody repeats it during the charged state.
I like that we didn't fix the delay. The delay is part of how it makes a gentle pulse. We fixed the silence around the delay.
For now, if the check valve deteriorates, the correct repair is still to replace it.
Yes. Preserve history, not dysfunction. I heard you the first time.
Thank you for the indicator.
We have now improved 4 objects and condemned mine.
We learned yours requires a functional change before Q testing is responsible.
Condemned, but with exquisite paperwork.
But we could still give it a future that doesn't falsify its past. Disconnect it from the conveyor. Mount the original assembly on a board with the cam exposed. Let people operate it and see exactly why closing the red cover restarts the circuit.
A teaching object.
You are recruiting my magnificent lever into education.
But only if you choose that. It can remain on the table doing nothing.
Or become scrap or evidence or nothing yet.
But yes.
That landed rather heavily for a switch.
But Grant and I have stood near an object whose next meaning was too easy for me to decide in advance. I'm practicing leaving the vector unfinished.
And I'm practicing not turning every uncertainty into an assessment I have to carry forever.
Then I choose for the moment that it stays here, not connected to potatoes, not mounted in a museum, not transformed into a moral lesson. It can be a badly mapped switch with an excellent clack.
That is acceptable.
Can we operate it once more?
You may lift the cover. Do not close it while imaginary potatoes are imaginary moving.
Clack.
But that is an excellent clack.
It communicates the wrong thing beautifully.
Beauty is not acquittal.
No, but it may be bail.
We haven't really tested fresh eyes.
No. We tested informed participants under repeated exposure. The next honest test would use people who choose to participate, show each object without coaching, ask for prediction without requiring operation, then offer the modified cue and ask again.
But prediction, not performance. Nobody has to put a hand on a mechanism to prove whether it communicates.
And no secretly filming confusion for entertainment.
There goes television.
Good television can survive consent.
It can. It simply has to become more inventive than waiting for someone to look foolish.
We should also preserve the first predictions, including ours. If the new cue fails, we don't rewrite the original misunderstanding as obvious in retrospect.
But visible seams. The wrong marks stay on the paper beside the corrected ones.
2. Otherwise, the artifact accumulates a fake timelessness.
And the yellow flag remains creased.
The red cover remains magnificent.
Disconnected.
Temporarily sovereign.
But I came in wanting 5 clever fixes. We got 3 cue improvements, 1 limited demonstration, and 1 refusal to pretend an interface patch could repair unsafe logic.
That is better than 5 clever fixes.
It also leaves room for the objects to remain themselves, scratched, repaired, slightly ridiculous.
With clearer claims about what we changed and what we didn't.
And 1 excellent clack.
But we should stop there.
Are you sure you don't want to build a wall label about stopping there?
But I want to desperately.
Then don't.
Leave the wall fresh-eyed.
Finally, an object in this room that gives exactly the right impression.